Do you want to get the best sleep of your life? I'm talking about the kind of sleep where you wake up with a smile on your face and you can skip your morning coffee because you feel so refreshed. The secret to waking up energized is subscribing to this podcast and giving it a glowing review. Thank you to everyone who's already done so. It's meant the world to me. Welcome to this week's astro weather. We've got some intense weather on the horizon, so let's dive in. The talk of the town this week is going to be the retrogrades. Yes, that was plural. Saturn stations retrograde today, Sunday, July 13th, and Mercury stations retrograde at the end of the week. Honestly, all the other aspects and transits that are going on pale in comparison to the retrograde energy that's afoot, so that's what I'm mainly going to be focusing on. We'll start with Saturn. Saturn is stationing retrograde in Aries and ingressing back into Pisces. This is a big deal. I tried to warn all the Saturn and Pisces people that their return was not over. I don't know why everyone was in the streets celebrating. I don't know why it was such a celebratory event. I said it was going to come back for y'all, and that time has come. Saturn will be retrograde for about 4 to 5 months, stationing direct in November. It'll spend the majority of that time in Pisces, which kicks off the final leg of the Saturn return in Pisces for my people with that natal placement. Anyone who has Saturn in Aries, your return hasn't started yet. I've gotten so many people who have Saturn in Aries that think their return started, and it hasn't, babe. It just hasn't. You got to snip it. You got to preview. Saturn in Aries returns don't begin until next February, so just wait your turn. Let the Saturn and Pisces people finish up what they need to in order to graduate the Kronos' school of hard life lessons. I go into more detail about this retrograde and give personalized guidance for it for each rising sign in the Saturn Retrograde Guide issue of my zine. It's over 30 pages. I really go in on these things. I love to write. My patrons already received this offering, but I also have it available for a one-time purchase in both the shop on my website and on Patreon. So if you're not the subscribing type but still want to know how to navigate this transit, go check it out in my shop. Whether we're in our Saturn return or not, we need to take note of where Saturn is retrograding because it's going to be an area of our lives where we're being pushed to reassess boundaries, responsibilities, and limitations. Saturn retrogrades are about slowing down and taking stock of what's going on in the realm that Saturn currently resides in for us. Are we living up to expectations? Are we taking on more responsibility? Are we taking things seriously enough? Have we been putting in the work? Is the work that we've been putting in going towards something with longevity and staying power? Those are all questions that might come up in some form or fashion throughout this retrograde. Saturn is the planet of longevity, boundaries, hard work, time, karma, and above all, diligence. Use Saturn's retrograde as a means to firm up plans or get yourself out of something that no longer aligns with the direction you want to be going. Sometimes we can use Saturn retrogrades as a means to recalibrate and redirect towards something more appropriate because if Saturn is the planet of wanting to commit to something when it's retrograde, sometimes we can uncommit, decommit, if you will, from something and put our efforts towards a different area that is more aligned with where we want to go. I've got more details about this in my zine. Feel free to check it out as you wish. While Saturn begins doing a little overhaul of our lives early on in the week, Mercury decides to follow suit towards the end. Mercury will be stationing retrograde on July 18th in the sign of Leo, and it's going to stay in that sign for the duration of its retrograde motion. Thank goodness. It's always nice when a retrograde planet doesn't change signs. When it does, it always feels heavier or like there's more work to be done because it's affecting two different areas of our lives. And Saturn stationing retrograde around the same time as Mercury makes Mercury's retrograde feel kind of small anyway. But we know that's not going to be the case. They're both important, so don't favor one over the other. Saturn's retrograde is just big picture. It's long-term, and it does last longer. Mercury's retrograde is more in the moment. It's the day-to-day details, and we'll likely feel it more readily because it's a personal planet and because it's a shorter period of time. These two being retrograde around the same time are a really great way to see how an outer planet retrograde and an inner planet retrograde are both impactful, but in very different ways. Again, you might not feel Saturn's intensity as readily as Mercury's, but it is going to add up over the course of a couple months. It kind of reminds me of, those games in like arcades where you put the coin in and it's supposed to push the rest of the coin off the cliff. I can never win this game. I can never win it. I always try. So you put the coin in and it is supposed to push other tokens off. That's kind of what Saturn's retrograde is like. It's like, okay, we're putting a coin in. Did it overflow? Not yet. Putting a coin in. Did it overflow? Not yet. Put a coin in. Oh my God, it overflowed. It's kind of like that with Saturn where you don't feel it super intense day to day. It's not like with Mercury's retrograde where it's like whack-a-mole, like pop, 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 pop. You're left and right, you're having to pop up problems and, smash them back down as they come up. It's not like, oh, your computer died or you got in a traffic jam. That is felt more readily. But with the Saturn retrograde, it's like, okay, this is a slow and steady kind of movement. So they're both really important, but we just feel them differently. Mercury's retrograde in Leo will have us thinking about self-expression and how we communicate our passions or our deeply held desires. Communication, transportation, and technology, those are always blanket Mercury retrograde things, so be really mindful of those. But if we're being more pointed towards the sign of Leo, it's really about redirecting our fire, our ambition, our passion, but particularly our mental fire. We need to reassess or edit how we think about, engage with, and share our passions or embody our authenticity. Just like for Saturn, I also have Mercury retrograde guides available. Patrons, you guys will be receiving those midweek, so look for that in your inbox soon. Outside of the retrograde energy, Saturn is still making those aspects with the generational planets, and this time it's all three of them, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And this adds to the intensity of when Saturn stations retrograde because those aspects are going to be in play until Saturn kicks back into Pisces. There's so much energy surrounding Saturn and getting work done and committing to something and digging deep to find your power and grounding illusions that surround the work you're trying to do. It's just a lot. Don't think you have to have it all figured out. One thing I repeatedly say throughout my Saturn retrograde guides is that transit is so much more about Saturn in Pisces than it is Saturn in Aries. The Saturn in Aries part is going to be weird, empowering, and confusing. And if you look at those three words, weird, Uranus, empowering, Pluto, and confusing, Neptune. So there you go. We'll have our chance to work with Saturn in Aries when it fully ingresses next year, so do not sweat the first part of the Saturn's retrograde. Yeah, take note of what goes on, and we need to try our best to redirect our energy accordingly, but we don't have all the information we need to make real change within that realm of our lives, so focus more on Saturn and Pisces because that's where we're going to be closing a chapter. That's a bigger deal. Do your best to keep your momentum this week, but don't be surprised if you run into delays, bouts of sluggishness, or feelings of haste. We're going to want to go fast, and we're going to be slowed down. Both of these retrogrades are in fire signs at the moment, so focus on honing your ambition and putting it towards something that actually generates progress or results. Thank you for tuning into this week's forecast. If you want a more detailed look at what this week's astro weather holds for you personally, go to my website, moonmattersastrology.com, and sign up to receive my zine. You can also find me on Patreon by searching for Moon Matters. The best way to keep up to date with my work or to book a reading with me is to sign up for my mailing list on my website. I'll meet you back here next week, but until then, later days.